you ever look around the furry fandom and wonder, how does everyone have so many friends? And I know it's not just me. It seems like every picture I see of furries on social media is with a bunch of other people, either at places like cons or house parties. I'm sure at one point we've all seen those pictures of a bunch of heads on a couch and wondered, how do I get to know that many people? Well, I have an answer for you, though it might not be what you might think. While making friends is one of the primary reasons people join this fandom, one of the things this community tends to do is conflate what the word friend actually means. You see, in this fandom and in life in general, there are a lot more levels of relationships that you could develop than just friends. And that's a good thing, because if someone doesn't become your friend, it's not the end of the world. You can still have some level of relationship with them where they can still say that they know you. But these levels aren't always obvious to recognize when they're all combined into the word friend. So let's take a look at what friends in the furry fandom actually mean, and how there is actually a wide range of relationships that you could have with other people in this fandom. Let me explain. We'll begin by giving this idea a little bit of context. Like I said before, many people come to this fandom looking to make and keep new friends, myself included. And that makes sense. That's almost how this fandom is advertised. The whole point of joining the furry fandom is to find and connect with other people who have a weird fascination with anthropomorphic animals, giving us all a base level shared interest to start conversations with. On top of that, the fandom has also become a home of other marginalized individuals, giving them a safer space to be themselves than other places they may have access to in their lives. So joining this fandom to make friends is not just acceptable, it's basically the expectation. But after being in this fandom for a little bit, I found that positioning this fandom as a place to make friends sometimes sets people up for failure. The furry fandom is unique in that it's a primarily online space where a lot of connections among people in this community start and are strengthened in apps and platforms. And while that has undoubtedly led to the growth and flourishing of this fandom, it has had its adverse side effects, one of them being the abstraction of relationships. Especially nowadays, online spaces where furries spend a lot of time are designed for highlights, quick flashes of the best parts of people's lives. But what that does is hide a lot of the not so best parts of people's lives, things that they definitely don't want to share out in the public. And to me, one of the most glaring examples of this is with relationships, particularly friendships, where when newer members come to these online spaces and see everyone hanging out with so many people, they wonder how they could get that many friends for themselves. But that goal of obtaining as many friends as possible is a lot more complicated than it sounds, mainly because everyone can't be your friend. Now, we've talked about this on this channel before, but for reasons that you can and can't control, not everyone is going to be considered a good friend of yours in this fandom, and that's okay. But from what I've seen, why that's okay sort of gets lost in the abstraction of relationships in this fandom, where relationships in this community are shown as binary. You're either my friend or you're not. And that just isn't how things work either. There is a whole spectrum of relationships that you could have in this fandom that results in you knowing a lot of people. And again, that's a good thing. We as humans are such a dynamic species that trying to take our relationships with each other, one of the most important parts of our lives, and simplifying them only works to our detriment. So, in an effort to be more transparent about how relationships actually work in this fandom, I devised a leveling system that categorizes the majority of how we relate to each other as members of the community. Now, I'll be honest, even this is an abstraction of the complicated relationships that people have in this fandom. But in a vast majority of cases, I found that placing who we know in one of these 5 categories helps us understand our place in relation with one another. So let's dive into the five different levels of furry relationships. Just for your reference, we're going to be sorting these levels from broad to specific, or in other words, easiest to hardest to access. And we're starting with the level that I call familiars. Your familiars are people that you know exist, but don't really know personally all that well. Another way to describe this level is the know of level. These are people in the fandom that you don't know, but you know of. This is the broadest category of relationships because this takes basically no effort other than recognizing a name and a face, and they don't necessarily have to recognize you in response. And in a fandom that is a lot smaller than you might think, this list can fill up fast. This category can include fursuiters that you really like, artists that you may recognize, and even creators that you follow. In fact, if I don't know you and you meet me in person and say that you know me, I will kindly but consistently remind you that you don't know me, but you know of me. There's a clear distinction there between the two, because the familiars level only requires the recognition to be one-sided. If it does become both-sided, that means that the relationship has moved up to the second level of friendships in this fandom. The next level above your familiars are your acquaintances, and in my experience, this is the level that gets confused with actual friendships all the time. Acquaintances are a type of relationship where both sides know each other, but not enough to be considered friends. This relationship is very surface level, where you both may know your names, sona species, and other small things about each other like what city you guys live in or what you guys do for work. But these aren't the people that you're reaching out to for personal things like life advice or venting. In online spaces, they may be considered something like mutuals, where you both follow each other, but that's really the extent of what you know about them. I have a lot more acquaintances in this fandom than friends because I may only see them once or twice a year at places like big conventions, and we'll catch up and enjoy our company while we're there, and then when the con's done, we move on with our lives and spend more time with people in levels above this one, something we'll expand on later. However, I do want to make sure that I highlight that having acquaintances in this fandom, and a lot of them, is almost expected and normal. This is where people who you try to make friends with and it doesn't work out right away may end up, and that doesn't mean that they hate you or are not interested in knowing you. They're just not at that level yet, and acquaintances still deserve respect and can be fun to hang out with and catch up from time to time. In fact, pretty much all other relationships above this level start at this one, and they may spend a few minutes or a few years at this level before they are promoted to the next one. The third level of relationships in the furry fandom is your friends, and this is the most straightforward one to explain. I don't think I need to hash out the formal definition of what a friend is. You know who they are. These are the people in this fandom that you interact with the most, the people you may text weekly and always try to make plans with in person as well. If several friends know each other, they may turn into a friend group where the collective does things together to strengthen the friendship bond with one another. To me, this is the implied goal or end state of being a furry, finding and being with your friends. But this takes time, effort, and commitment to do, which is why everyone can't be your friend, and not all of us have the bandwidth for a ton of them. But when someone does become your friend in this fandom, you know it, and they'll know it as well, and it's a very special feeling. I honestly don't know what I'd be doing with my life without the friends I've made in this fandom, and I'm super thankful that the effort I put in to make them has paid off so well. And while your friends are your foundation in this fandom, sometimes a select few of those friends will take on an even higher importance in your life, hoisting them into the next level of friendships in this fandom. The fourth level of relationships in this fandom is your best friends, the friends that mean that much more to you than other people in your life. The easiest way for me to describe your best friends and to differentiate them from your regular friends is that they are the people you love on a platonic level. You may not be in a romantic relationship with them, but you care about them so much that you make excuses to do things for and with them. The difference between a friend and a best friend will vary from person to person, and not all of those reasons will be rational or even fair. Like for me, my best friends are all people that I see in person multiple times a year as well as talk to every week. And of course, that's unfair. If you don't see me in person, a lot of your chances of being one of my best friends is implicitly lower, and it's no fault of mine or yours. But the opposite is true as well. Those two aspects of my best friends don't automatically qualify you for being one for me. Like all relationships, it's not nearly as cut and dry. Again, this is just one of those categories where you know it when it happens, and while making friends is the goal of joining this fandom, the bond between your best friends goes beyond it, where even if you were to leave the fandom, you would still have that relationship with other best friends in your lives. It's a special bond that ends up being the ceiling for a lot of people in this fandom. But there is one more special type of relationship whose strength goes beyond even your best friends. The fifth and final level of relationship in the furry fandom is your partner or partners. I don't judge. This is the person or people that you love romantically and a relationship that goes beyond the boundaries of the furry fandom. Actually, because of that, I honestly don't want to spend too much time dissecting these romantic relationships. Because they are so personal, it's impossible to give them all any sort of formal definition. But again, you know when you're in love with someone or someones in ways that no one else can describe for you, which is why this is its own special level that you might experience with people not in this fandom at all. However, it's still worth recognizing and separating from the rest of the levels in this fandom because many people do end up finding their partner in this community. So, those are the 5 levels of relationships in this fandom, and the whole goal of explaining them is to reinforce the idea that not everyone in this fandom will be your friend. But that's okay, because a vast majority of people you interact with in this fandom will fall into one of these categories, all of which are worth having. This is how people know so many other people in this fandom. The individuals are spread amongst these different levels, and the cool thing is that people will move amongst these levels as well. Acquaintances may become friends over time, you may lose a best friend after a disagreement, or you may even fall in love at first sight. It's a part of our lives that's always moving and changing, which is why many people take the easy route of calling everyone their friend. But the whole goal of making this video was to describe that knowing people in this fandom isn't nearly that binary. It's not all or nothing. And keeping things balanced amongst these levels allows each of them to have the healthy amount of attention that they deserve. So just because someone isn't your best friend doesn't mean you have to disregard them. Managing the people you know based on your level of relationship makes knowing so many people in this fandom a much more manageable experience. Alright, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one, but until then, stay wild out there. Peace.